Turn to Psalm 27. Not a church history lesson today. We've already kind of covered that. In getting ready for the sermon today on chapter 5, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. I really found that I had more than I had time. And so I thought, we'll just do like 2 sermons almost. And we'll do a sermon prep study here maybe in the next hour as we look through Psalm 27. It's the psalm that we're going to be using in our order of worship as a call to worship today, if you've seen that in the bulletin already. I'm calling this psalm the believer's prayer. It is a psalm of David. Moses tells us that Enoch walked with God and then was not. It's like that, where did he go? It's that disappearance of Enoch, and it doesn't give us much about his life, but it just says he walked with God and then he was not. It doesn't say that he died, it just said he was not. Giving kind of the impression that perhaps Enoch didn't die, and he just went on to be with the Lord. I've heard that the sermon illustration, whenever he just walked so close with the Lord that he just continued to walk and walked right in the presence of God and just was with him forever. And you might think about Elijah and Elisha. Elijah who doesn't die. He's just taken up in the whirlwind, in the chariot, and he's taken up into the presence of God. Well, Psalm 27 portrays the earnest life of prayer of a believer who walks with God through a world that's full of valleys and shadows, with a longing to dwell forever with his covenant-keeping God. He's like Luther, who was full of fears as he faced the threats of the world and the flesh and the devil, yet by grace alone, he's full of faith alone because of Christ alone. Or maybe he's like Mary, who had chosen the one thing that would not be taken from her. Remember Mary, who sat at the feet of Jesus while Martha was busy in the kitchen making all kinds of preparations, and Jesus told Martha, "Oh, Martha, Martha," that little phrase. "You're worried about so many things." But Mary's chosen the one thing. She's chosen the best thing. She's chosen the one thing that won't be taken away from her, to sit at the feet of Jesus and to behold the glory of God in the face of Christ. Well, this, David, and we'll find today, the believer prays for, and he can be confident that God will grant this good thing. So let's begin today by reading Psalm 27, and then we'll walk our way through it using the handout that you have. A Psalm of David. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the defense of my life. Whom shall I dread? When evildoers came upon me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they stumbled and fell. Though a host encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war arise against me, in spite of this, I shall be confident. One thing I have asked from the Lord, that I shall seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple. For in the day of trouble he will conceal me in his tabernacle. In the secret place of his tent he will hide me. He will lift me up on a rock. Now my head will be lifted up above my enemies around me, and I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing. Yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice, and be gracious to me and answer me. When you said, "Seek my face," my heart said to you, "Your face, O Lord, I shall seek." Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not abandon me, nor forsake me, O God of my salvation. For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me up. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in a level path because of my foes. Do not deliver me over to the desire of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and such as breathe out violence. I would have despaired unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Yes, wait for the Lord. It's a great psalm, isn't it? It's not hard to kind of lay hold of that kind of a psalm. Christopher Ash, in his commentary on Psalms, notes that this is the third of 4 consecutive psalms that are simply headed of David. In other words, there's no indication, Ash says, from what period of David's life the psalm derives. Its language is so often is the case, it's just very general. And this is in order, Ash believes here, that it might be easily reappropriated by subsequent generations of believers. So again, it's not historically situated in a particular thing, like other psalms when he's fleeing from Absalom, or he's been confronted by Nathan the prophet for his sin, or something like that. It's just a psalm of David. And that being the case, that subsequent generations of believers might easily kind of plug into such a psalm, Calvin says this. He says that perceiving the conflict that he had to wage with the sharpest temptations, this fortifies himself beforehand, and as it were, he brings together in this psalm matter for confidence. Think about that phrase, matter. Something substantial. He brings together an assortment of things that should strengthen him and fortify him and give him confidence in the Christian life. Calvin says it is necessary that the saints earnestly wrestle with themselves to repel and subdue the doubts which the flesh is so prone to cherish. A saint, a Christian person, you need to be regularly and consistently, even purposefully, even aggressively wrestling with yourself. Think about the world, the flesh, and the devil, all right? Well, the devil is one being. The world is all around me, yes, but what's always with me? The flesh, me, all right? Somebody wants to blame your sin on the demon because there's a demon behind every bush. And there are certainly demons in the world, and the devil is very real. He prowls about like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. But my worst enemy that I ever face is just me. It's constant. I'm just with me every time I go to bed, every time I lay awake at night, when I get up in the morning, look in the mirror, there I am again. And it's like another day to wrestle with the flesh. But if I always think my enemy is somewhere else, I'm always looking for someone else to kind of blame. I can easily take this kind of victim status, can't I? But if I see my flesh as such a constant companion. So he says, saints must earnestly wrestle with themselves to repel or subdue the doubts which the flesh is so prone to cherish. You know, we get after our kids when they're pouty. But one of the reasons our kids bug us when they're pouty is because we get pouty. And we just don't have much mercy for pouty people, all right? Why? Because we're pouty. And we can easily kind of turn inward and begin to grumble inside and just become discouraged. The flesh, Calvin says, is prone to cherish doubt. And it's got to be wrestled with. And it's got to be fought. And it's got to be thrown violent blows that might put it to death every day. Calvin says this is so that they, believers, may cheerfully and speedily betake themselves to prayer. If I'm just reveling in my doubt, then I'm probably not going to be quick to pray. All right? I'm going to be slow to pray because I'm just going to be happy in my doubt and my frustration and my poutiness. And, you know, Janice will try to encourage me sometimes. And I'm just thinking, don't do that. I'm having a moment. Don't you see? I just want to pout. And sometimes, you know, we're all like Rachel. She refused to be what? Sorry. It just happened to have one of those names. I was thinking, how do you share this Bible verse now that there's someone in the church named Rachel? So, you know, well, we refuse to be comforted. You could put a blank there and put anybody's name. Because there are moments that I just don't want to be comforted. I just want you to come beside me and affirm my pitifulness. I want you to affirm my poutiness. I want you to just revel with me for a while. Well, we need to speed ourselves to prayer, to stir our hearts and fight against the world, the flesh, and the devil. Well, as such, it's my hope that we might take up the study and contemplation of this psalm today to kind of reappropriate, to use Ash's word, to reappropriate its truths and encourage us today. Now, in the handout that you have, we have one of those famous chiasms. I know you're excited there. All right. There you go. Somebody was excited. All right. We'll give brownie points to that. Okay. Well, a chiasm is simply a way of structuring things in literature that drives us to a particular point of emphasis, all right? And so as we go through this today, is that right? I don't know. Something like that. Okay, a little better. I knew something was wrong. Okay, so it comes from the Greek letter chi. Now, we don't usually do this on a board, so we usually mention the word. But it looks like an X, or really what it's going to end up looking like is part of the X. All right? Sorry, that's squeaky. So, as you notice in the handout that you have, we start on the outside, work our way to the middle, and then we work our way back out. And there is a correspondence between the opening line and the closing line, the secondary line, and the one right before the very end. And then there's a third level that corresponds, and then we have a middle piece. Now, sometimes with chiastic structures, you'll notice that A, B, C, D, C, B, A. It's like you're reading some kind of Shakespeare poem from school. Who remembers those days? All right. A, B, B, A, C, A, B, C, B, A, and all those kind of things. And they wanted you to kind of notice that. Well, the Bible is literature. I mean, it is inspired literature, obviously. But it is literature, and there is an element of thoughtfulness that goes into the way things are often structured. And so here we have this A, B, C, D, C, B, A layout where opening line, closing line, second line, next to last line, and these lines correspond to one another. So let's kind of look for just a minute, just generally, at the flow of the chiasm. And I want to emphasize two things about it. I want to emphasize what I'm calling here public aspects and personal aspects to the psalm. So notice the opening line. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the defense of my life. Whom shall I dread? And I get this picture when he says this. It's a very public, it's a very open-faced declaration that he has some sense of confidence in his covenant-keeping God. And he says, before all those who will hear, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the defense of my life. Whom shall I dread? Well, this is his external boast. It's not a boast in the sense that he's proud of himself. It's a boast in the sense that he's proud of his God. He is taking great confidence and great trust in his covenant-keeping God. If you look through the psalm, and we'll kind of do this as we go through it, you can probably pull it out pretty well just there on the page. Notice how many times L-O-R-D, capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. What is that indicating in your English Bible? Jeff? Yahweh, all right? The covenant name of God, the covenant-keeping name of God. And so he's saying that I have a great confidence and trust in my covenant-keeping God, all right? It occurs 13 times in these 14 verses, the name Yahweh, or as we have in our English translations, Lord, all right? Notice how this opening declaration, this public declaration of trust, corresponds to the last line in the poem, the believer's personal exhortation to trust in his covenant-keeping God. As you read the Psalms, some Psalms seem to go from quiet to loud. This Psalm seems to go, the way I read this, from loud to quiet. He starts off with, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the defense of my life. Whom shall I dread? Wait for the Lord. Be strong. Take heart. Take courage. Yes, wait for the Lord. Now, maybe that's just the way I'm reading it. But I hear him at the end of this psalm speaking words of direction, exhortation, comfort to his own heart. It's like you're standing there with Moses and Joshua, or God and Joshua. Be what? Be strong and courageous. How many times do you hear that phrase over and over in various Old Testament settings? And he says to his own heart, wait for God. Wait for God. Be strong. Take courage. Wait for the Lord. All right? Rather than, yeah, you're right to pout. It's been a hard day. You didn't get much sleep, and you're kind of grumpy, and it's okay. You can take a few minutes to just pamper yourself and pout. That's not what he says. He says, wait for God. Wait for the Lord. Take courage. Be strong. Be courageous. Well, as we work our way into the psalm, into that second level of the chiasm, we come to verse 2. When evildoers came upon me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies, they stumbled and fell. Though a host encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war arise against me, in spite of this, I shall be confident. Now, I take this under the heading that I've given it, the believer's personal confidence in his covenant-keeping God. I don't think we're so much in the public sphere here anymore. I think we're looking more inward, because he mentions his own heart. My heart will not fear. He has a resolution that he will trust in God. His heart will not be afraid. Though all these things arise against me on the outside, notice he mentions evildoers. He mentions adversaries, enemies, a host, a war, all these external things. But then again, he thinks of his heart. My heart is not going to fear. I will be confident. But then, notice the corresponding line toward the end in verse 11. We move from the believer's personal confidence in his covenant-keeping God to the believer's public confidence in his covenant-keeping God. When my heart is not afraid, you can tell. All right? And you can also tell when my heart is afraid. When I'm laying around pouting, worried about all these different kinds of things, it's because my heart is what? My heart's full of fear. All right? My heart's struggling. All right? But notice that personal confidence in verse 2 and 3, down in verses 11 to 13, kind of displays itself in a public confidence in his covenant-keeping God. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in a level path because of my foes. Do not deliver me over to the desire of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and such as breathe out violence. I would have despaired unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. He's thinking here about his public life. He's thinking about life before all the various people that he knows in the world, the land of the living. He believes God is going to deliver him in a tangible experience in this world. Now, if we wanted to kind of move forward Christologically here, I've wondered if this may be pointing even to the idea of the resurrection. That he has all these adversaries, these witnesses risen against me, they breathe out violence. What kept him? What kept him from despair? He knew that God would vindicate him. God would deliver him, the goodness of God in the land of the living, and here is Christ and his resurrection. But I just kind of want to keep it at the psalm level now, just thinking about this idea of what's going on here with David. So he has this sense of public confidence that's rooted in a personal confidence in his covenant-keeping God. Well, let's move a little closer to the middle of the psalm, all right? The believer's prayer in his covenant-keeping God. Now, this is going to be this whole middle section, all right? And the first two parts, the first and the last part, are going to correspond to one another in verses 4 through 6, and then in verses 8 through 10. So notice three things, though, about the prayer. So the whole thing here stretches from verse 4 all the way down to verse 10. So verse 4 and verse 10 with, verse 7, I think, that's right in the middle of all of this, okay? So let's think about three things here, all right? Think about the content of the prayer, think about the character of the prayer, and the cause of the prayer, all right? Its content. Let's read verses 4, 5, and 6. One thing I have asked from the Lord, and that I shall seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple. For in the day of trouble he will conceal me in his tabernacle. In the secret place of his tent he will hide me. He will lift me up on a rock, and now my head will be lifted up above my enemies around me, and I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing, yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. Now, if we just think in terms of the old covenant, all right, let's root David in his covenantal context, all right. Where is it that David is going to see God? Where is it that David's going to be in the presence of God? In the temple, all right. He uses some other terms in here as well, doesn't he? The tabernacle, right, talks about that. Anything else jump out? The secret place, the house of the Lord. So we've got the tabernacle imagery, or that mobile tent. We've got the tent. We've got that picture of the temple, the house of the Lord. Now, this is a silly question probably, but just to make us think about it. What's in the house of the Lord? The Lord. Okay, now, we know and affirm with Solomon that even the temple that Solomon built could not contain God, correct? But it was designed to at least display and represent the place where God dwelt. It was the place where the Holy of Holies was. It was the place where the Ark of the Covenant would have been. It's the place where the cherubim that cover the mercy seat, as they're looking into, I was really kind of fascinated the last several weeks just hearing someone talk about the angels who are longing to look into the things of the gospel, all right? What is it that the angelic cherubim are staring at on top of the Ark of the Covenant? The mercy seat, the hilasterion, the place of propitiation, Christ. That solid gold cover for the Ark of the Covenant represents Christ, and they're longing to look into the things of Christ. It's an interesting image there. So, the psalmist is longing, in Augustine's words, he's longing for the good of all good, from which all good derives. The good to which nothing can be added to explain what goodness is. In other words, God here is the summum bonum of all things, the highest good of all good. Or as Augustine would say again, the person who is truly happy is not so much the one who has what he or she loves, but the one who loves what is worthy of love. Now think about that. Slow down there a minute. You know, if I could just get this toy, you know, your kids will say, all right? And they get that toy, or they get to go to that thing, all right? You've taken your kids to Six Flags finally, and this is the best day, what? Ever. It's the best day since yesterday, when they did something else that they really thought was great. It's not quite as good as tomorrow, when I'm going to get something even better than today, but it's the best day ever. I mean, they are in the moment, right? So, Augustine says, I'm sure he was thinking about a kid in Six Flags. I'm sure he was thinking about his own heart. The person who is truly happy is not so much the one who has what he or she loves, because people can love that which is less than the best good. This is what we often do, right? This is idolatry, all right? Loving, having our affection tied to that which is less than the best good. But the one who is truly happy, the one who loves, is the one who loves what is worthy of love. This is why Augustine says in his Confessions in the opening section, you have made us for yourself, and our heart is what? Our heart is restless until it rests in thee. All right? Well, I want to come back to this one here. I want to come back to verse 7, the character. So I want to move from the content of the prayer. He's praying that he might dwell in the house of God, to behold the beauty of God, to see God, to be with God, all right? Like Mary again, all right? There at the feet of Christ. Notice its cause. What moves him to pray such a prayer? Verse 8. When, and that's a time reference that's kind of, he's reflecting back now, all right? When you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, O Lord, shall I seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my help. Do not abandon me nor forsake me, O God of my salvation. For my father and mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will take me up. It's an interesting image there in verse 10. Now, we don't have any text in the Old Testament that tell us that Jesse, his father, and his mother literally abandoned him. All right, this could be just a reference broadly to everything in the world that I've trusted in and hoped in. all those things in the world that should provide me the comfort and peace and joy, they've all what? They've all forsaken me. And it's used of things that have been abandoned, things that have been kind of left off, all right? You can imagine here the imagery here as of a child that's been abandoned by the ones that should be caring for them in the world. But then it says, the Lord will take me up. Literally, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, it talks about a man who leaves his mother and father and clings to his wife. The word leaves there is the word here for abandoned. It's left him off, all right? But the word that's used of take me up could be translated gather me in. It's used in the book of Ruth about the sheaves, the gathering up of the wheat stalks or whatever there, all right? So there's this idea of I've been left off by what should have cared for me in the world, but I've been taken up with undeserved grace and favor by God. Yeah, Jeff? I guess it could be. I don't know if the term abandoned is ever used of someone having died and left someone alone like that. I get the impression, though, that it's just something that the things that should have cared for me in the world don't. But God, who wasn't obligated to care for me. Parents are obligated to care for their children. But God is under no obligation to do anything kind and gracious to me. But he does. All right, and David's overwhelmed by that kind of reality here. So, what causes David to pray? All right? Well, it's God. First, God comes and says to David, what? Seek my face. Or I think of Ezekiel when he came and found Israel like a baby abandoned in the field, the umbilical cord not cut, just covered with blood and refuse. And he said to you, I said to you, in your blood, what? Live. And what happened? He lived. Why? Because God, through his power, can take what doesn't exist and make it to exist. I thought of Augustine again in his Confessions where he says, on your exceedingly great mercy rests all my hope. Give what you command, and then command whatever you will. You order us to practice continence, and continence here is just the broader idea of purity, moral purity. It can be restricted to sexual purity, but more broadly speaking, he's just thinking about you command us to obey you. You command us to walk in a way that's holy, but we're not holy. You order us to practice continence. A certain writer tells us, I knew that no one can be continent except by God's gift, and that it is already a mark of wisdom to recognize whose gift this is. By continence, the scattered elements of the self are collected and brought back into the unity from which we have slid away into dispersion. For anyone who loves something else along with you, but does not love it for your sake, loves you less. O love, ever burning, never extinguished. O charity, my God, set me on fire. You command continence, give what you command, and then command whatever you will. So, why would he pray? Why would he pray that to see God? Why would he have that one thing as his prayer? The fact that David is praying for that one thing is evidence that God has done what? God has graced him with the kindness and the condescending mercy to make him someone who would seek him. And then the moment God said, seek my face, that creating kind of power, my heart said what? I'll seek your face. Notice the phrase there when he said, when you said, seek my face, not my lips said, your face, O Lord, will I seek, but my heart said. This is not just some type of external religious ritual that David is now engaged in, I'll pray. All right, I'll do what I'm supposed to do. All right. No, my heart has been transformed. My heart that was dark in sin and dead in trespasses. I might think of or you might think of the psalm where David is crying out, "Give me a new heart." All right, or even Ezekiel again. What do you need? You need this new heart. The Spirit must be placed within you. You're like a valley of dry bones, and you need God to come and stir those bones, put flesh on them, and breathe life into them. I was talking yesterday with the kids. We were reading this psalm, and I was just asking them. And so I'll ask you, what is it that when you're presented with it, what is it that your heart responds to just like that? I mean, there's like no gap here, right? When you said, "Seek my face," my heart said. You get that idea? God said, "Seek my face." Well, I'm kind of busy today. God said, "Seek my face." Well, I've got some other stuff I'm working on. Maybe I'll get down to that. I'll put that on my list of things to do. God said to David, "Seek my face." David's heart said, "I'll seek your face." What is it that you respond to in this world? That kind of immediacy, with that kind of speed, that kind of quickness. I think that's an indicator. That can be like an indicator of like spiritual health, right? If we're really in tune, if you will, with the Lord, if we're really responding to Him as we should, the Lord tells us to obey, and we begin to debate. We begin to think, well, leave off this sin. Oh, well, Notice not just its content and its cause, but center in with me a little bit here at the very end on its character, right? He says in verse 7, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice, and be gracious to me and answer me." There are three things that are laid out in this prayer. They're kind of framed almost as commands. You think of the book of Hebrews. How are we to come before the throne of grace? With what? With boldness, right? Not with fear and trepidation, not with, Lord, but with a sense of boldness, with a sense of confidence, knowing that in Christ He will what? He will hear. He wants our prayers. He commands our prayers. And so David comes and he calls upon God. He says, "Hear, be gracious, answer." And they're very terse, definitive type statements. They're very bold. David's prayer, number one, he says, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice." David's prayer is heard. In other words, it's nothing wrong with praying in our hearts. And Jesus even says things like, when you pray, go into your closet. You're not wanting to stand on the street corner like the Pharisee in the temple. "Thank you, O God, for not making me like this guy over here," or whatever. But there is something here exhorted and encouraged in David's own prayer about vocalizing our prayers, about giving expression to our prayers, about praying to the Lord, asking Him certain things, being very specific. There's a cry that comes out, and this is a cry that comes out in His voice. It is a heard prayer. But it's not a proud prayer. It's not a self-serving prayer. It's a humble prayer. Notice he says, "Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice, and be gracious to me." Now, the fact that he's calling for grace means that he's recognizing in his prayer that he doesn't what? He doesn't deserve deliverance. He doesn't deserve seeing the face of God. He doesn't deserve being brought into God's tent or tabernacle. It's a gracious, humble prayer. But I think finally, when he says, "Answer me," it's a hopeful prayer. It's a hopeful prayer. He believes that the only place in the world to get the answer he needs is from who? From God. And this is the way our prayers ought to be to the Lord. We should voice our prayers to God. We should humbly come and ask for grace as we seek to enter into his presence. And we should ask God, yes, according to his will, but this is something according to his will. Because God said what? Seek my face. My heart said what? I'll seek your face. I mean, it's according to the will of God that God's people behold him. And we're going to look more at that in the sermon today when we look at the Beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. God wants us to behold him in this age and in the age to come. Now, there's a difference, though, because in this age we behold him by what? By faith and not by sight. In the age to come we behold him by sight, not by faith. And Christ plays a central role in both of those, because even in the heavens we behold the glory of God in the face of Christ. But